Hello and welcome to our special Battle of Champions as we build for the biggest festival in cricket, that is the Cricket World Cup. Today is a national holiday. It is the birth anniversary of Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and it also marks the day that our programming here of the Cricket World Cup starts on India Today. So for the next 2 months, every day at 6:30 p.m., we'll be bringing you all the latest from the festival of cricket, that is the Cricket World Cup. It is indeed the biggest prize in the sport of cricket. You know, Indians love their cricket. It is a religion, after all, in the country. And for the next 2 months, we're going to be bringing you up to date with all the minor details with regards to the Cricket World Cup. Also, lots of analysis with our various set of experts that will be joining us on India Today. But what we're going to do in our opening episode is to fill you in with all the big numbers, the macro numbers regarding the Cricket World Cup, to bring you up to date with the biggest prize of them all in the sport of cricket. So what are those big numbers that you really need to look at when the Cricket World Cup is going to start? We're going to break down that for you. So firstly, as you know, India are hosting the Cricket World Cup. Interestingly, the first time India alone are hosting a 50-over World Cup. Remember earlier, it was a co-host's role that India performed with the likes of Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and even on one occasion Pakistan sharing the hosting right with India. This time, India are the only hosts of the World Cup, which means all games are going to be played here on Indian soil. So what's really interesting that you need to remember, there are no groups in this format of the World Cup that you will see. There are going to be a total of 10 teams, and every team plays each other once. So it's a round-robin sort of a format, each team playing with the other. And this is a format that was arrived at by the International Cricket Council because the earlier format came in for a lot of criticism. This, remember, was the format that was first tried in 1992. After that, it was shunned. You had various different formats come after that, but eventually you saw in 2015 and then following the World Cup in 2019, go back to that 1992 format. That seems to be working really well. So that format will continue this time around. Now, how is it that you decide the semi-finalists? So top 4 go through to the semi. So as I said, 10 teams, no group, all play against each other once, and 9 games for each team. And top 4 at the end of the group stage, the top 4 teams will qualify for the semi-final. And then how do they play their semi-finals? The team that finishes right on top of the points table, number 1, will play the team that finishes on the number 4th spot. And the team that finishes 2 will play team that finishes 3. Now, just to remind you what happened last time around, it was a similar format. India finished on top and then played the team that finished 4th in New Zealand, and so on and so forth. So that is the format that you will see this time. And as I said, this is a format that most people, whether they are cricket pundits, whether they are cricket fans, they've given their stamp of approval to this format. So watch out for this. Moving on, the prize money. What is the prize money? And that's a question that's often asked. So the winner is going to get $4 million. That is roughly around 33 crore Indian rupees. That's the prize check that the winning team will get. Runner-up get 16.6 crore, which is equal to about $2 million. Now, after every group stage, if you win, you get about 40,000 USD. That is around 33 lakhs. So every group stage match, each team stands to get about 33 lakh rupees. So that is just breaking down the prize money. Now, what is very interesting, where does cricket really rank, and the Cricket World Cup really rank when you try to compare it with other big marquee events in the world of sport? So we've got a few. FIFA World Cup, no surprise there, is right on top with a big prize money of $163 million. So FIFA World Cup right on top. Wimbledon, we give you an idea. The total prize money, this is not just to the winners, but the total prize money that is distributed amongst teams finishing at various different positions. So in Wimbledon, if you win every round, you get some money. So the total prize money is at $65 million. Rugby World Cup, the total prize money at $20 million. And that's where Cricket World Cup really comes with 10 million. So not really competing with the likes of the FIFA World Cup, but you know, football is the biggest sport in the world, but the Cricket World Cup not too far behind there at 10 million. So that's the total prize money, and that's the question that gets asked very often. We'll move on to some other very interesting numbers regarding the Cricket World Cup. So this is something that the Indian fans would want to remember. For the last 3 editions we've seen it, the hosts have ended up lifting this World Cup trophy. That trend started right here in India in 2011. You'd remember MS Dhoni finishes off in style. India won that World Cup, and since then we've had hosts win it in 2015 Australia, 2019 England. Just to let you in on a bit of a technicality, a lot of people point out that, listen, even Sri Lanka in 1996 won the World Cup when they were hosts, but remember, they did not play the final in their home country. So this is effectively looking at the final also being played on home soil, and in that regard, the last 3 World Cups, the hosts have won. And before that, remember, all editions of the World Cup, the host proved to be very unlucky and could not get their hands on the title. For the last 3 editions of the World Cup have seen that trend change completely. Indian fans would be hoping that that trend continues. India are the sole host this time around. And who knows, maybe at the end of the World Cup, you might see Rohit Sharma holding this particular trophy. Okay, moving on to some other numbers with regards to the Cricket World Cup. Now, so just looking at various different venues that you've had, in this particular World Cup, there are going to be 10 venues in all during this Cricket World Cup, and we're going to break them down one by one, give you a glimpse of each venue. Narendra Modi Stadium, remember, this is where the World Cup caravan kicks off as well on the 5th. That's when the World Cup is starting. The first game is going to be a repeat of last time's final. That was New Zealand versus England. That will also be played at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. What's interesting about this venue? I don't need to tell you. It is right now the biggest cricket venue in the world with a capacity of 132,000. It's beaten the Melbourne Cricket Ground, so now the biggest cricket stadium in the world. 5 games to be played in all, and the marquee clash, which is going to be the marquee clash, I don't need to tell you. India versus Pakistan on October the 14th. Of course, the final also on the 19th November will be a game that will be played at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. Okay, other venues, the Arun Jaitley Stadium in New Delhi, a capacity of 37,500. Again, 5 league games to be played here. India versus Afghanistan is the marquee game. This, remember, is also India's second game in the tournament. Mark that date on your calendar. October the 11th is the game that will be played here. Then we move to the HPCA Cricket Stadium in Dharamshala. It has a capacity of 23,000. Arguably the prettiest cricket stadium in the world. That will also host 5 games. India game to watch out for, India versus New Zealand on October 22nd. It's going to be an interesting venue, this one, because remember, New Zealand's strength is their fast bowling, and this is one of those grounds which really helps fast bowlers perform well. So it's going to be a very good contest between India and New Zealand, and the visiting team are going to relish the conditions on offer here in Dharamshala. Picturesque stadium, to say the least. Ekana Stadium in Lucknow, a brand new stadium. It now has a capacity of 50,000. It will have a relayed pitch, which was relayed a couple of months ago. We don't know how the pitch is going to play, but if you remember the games in the IPL, it was assisting the spinners. Let's see whether that trend continues in the World Cup. 5 games here as well, and the marquee clash, India versus England, to be played on October the 29th. If it is indeed a pitch that assists the spinners, so it will be advantage India in that particular game. Moving on, Eden Gardens, one of the most iconic grounds, not just of India, but globally, capacity of 68,000. Remember, at one time it could accommodate 100,000 people, but now with different sort of seating that they've got, it's down to 68,000. Games to be played 5. Marquee clash, India versus South Africa on November the 5th. Once again, a stadium which might also help the visiting team, because this is again one of those grounds in India that helps some good fast bowling, and South Africa have a good set of fast bowlers with them. So November the 5th is the game that you can watch out for on that. Wankhede Stadium, Mumbai, capacity 32,000. Games to be played, once again 5. So it's been evenly divided between all the different stadiums. India versus Sri Lanka, that's the marquee clash on November the 2nd. You can watch out for that particular game. We move on to the MCA International Stadium in Pune, Gaunje, which is on the outskirts of Pune. Capacity 36,400. Again, 5 games to be played here. And interestingly, you keep looking at India matches, because all the venues have got at least one India game to host. So India, Bangladesh, mark that date on your calendar on October the 19th. Moving on to the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore, one stadium where there are plenty of runs to be had for the batters. Capacity 40,000, games to be played 5. India versus Netherlands on November the 12th. This, remember, is India's last league game. By that time, you will have an idea whether India have qualified for the semi-final, and if they have, in what position and what is going to be the opposition that they will have in the semi-final. So that's another interesting game to watch out for. The Chidambaram Stadium, also known as the Chepauk in Chennai, again, one of India's most iconic stadiums, 50,000 capacity, 5 games to be played, India-Australia on October the 8th. This is India's first game of the tournament against Australia, which many are considering to be title favourites. So 2 title favourites in India and Australia clash on October the 8th. That game is going to be played in Chennai. Rajiv Gandhi International Stadium in Hyderabad. It has a capacity of 55,000. Games to be played here 3, and this is the only stadium out of the 10 that I just mentioned which will not have an India game, but it still has 3 games